friends, welcome. I hope you were having a wonderful day. It is Sunday here in my kitchen and it's a little chilly outside. Not quite spring legally, technically. So I'm going to do a Sunday braise. I like to do a braise on Sunday because it's something that's low and slow in the oven and takes a while, and I can just smell it cooking all day while I'm doing whatever tasks I might have at hand. Today I'm going to do a pork shank. Now a shank sometimes is called an ossobuco, but this is actually not cut into ossobuco pieces. I got this at the farmer's market last weekend and thawed it out. Now pork shank is one of my husband's favorite dishes. We had it, let's see, many moons ago, 8 years ago, I think, on our honeymoon in Naples, Florida. And so this is my rendition of that dish. So I have some olive oil in my stove over here, heating up, and I have generously seasoned this with salt and pepper. So we're gonna brown this. I'm just gonna wash my hands real quick. And what you like to do with a braise is you like to brown your meat first. Okay, you want, it's obviously not gonna be cooked through, but you wanna get a nice char or crust or whatever word you understand where you want color on the meat. And then you add some aromatics like onions and celery and carrots. And then I also have some herbs that I'm gonna throw in there. And then I'm doing a little anchovy paste in there, a little umami, but we'll talk about that. So while this pork shank is braising, I'm going to cut up my onion and carrots and chat with you a little bit. So you might be wondering, like, what is the difference between a braise and roasting, let's say? So roasting is dry. So like when you roast a chicken, there might be a little fat on it. Some people put butter on it. Last week I tried out duck fat on it. Not gonna complain about that. But a lot of times you just put seasoning on it, you put it dry into a hot oven, and that is roasting, okay? I know it's confusing because they'll say a Sunday roast, let's say. My mom used to make a roast on Sundays with some beef stock and onions and things that would be braised in the oven. But that is essentially what a roast is dry. Now a braise is when the meat is partially covered by liquid, okay? So it's not totally submersed in liquid, but it comes up to kind of the neck, if that makes sense. So we're gonna do a nice dice on this onion. And then we're gonna cut the carrots. Okay, so I have my onion chopped. Now when you're cutting carrots for something that's gonna be in the oven for about 4 hours, you don't wanna do tiny pieces because then they're already going to be a little mushy, but you want some nice chunks for them. So I do not peel my carrots. I buy organic carrots, I wash them, scrub them, and then I cut them into nice chunks, like that. Boop. Okay, so we're gonna cut the rest of these. Now, what I like to do for this particular dish is I like to add in the last, like, I don't know, half an hour of the process, I like to add some fresh carrots in. So there's some with a little more crunch to them. And I have some baby carrots that I got from the farmer's market, and I'm gonna use those baby carrots. So I've already flipped over my pork once. We just have to cut up the celery. Same with celery as the carrots. You want some good sized chunks. This is more for flavor. And then I'm doing some baby elephant garlic. So this is also from the farmer's market. Instead of doing whole cloves of garlic for this, I'm going to use this baby garlic. And you can cut up to the, like a scallion, you can cut up to the green part. And because it's baby garlic or garlic scapes that you can sometimes use, the flavor is not as in your face. And I love garlic, but sometimes, you know. Okay, so I've removed the pork. You can see how I have a nice sear on that side. I'm going to add some salt. You always want to add salt in layers, okay? So I'm salting there's in here is my onions, my celery, my carrots, and my garlic. And then do some fresh cracked black pepper. I'm gonna stir this up real good. Now we're not trying to cook all of this through. We're just trying to sweat it out a little bit. Because we're building layers. You want to build layers of flavor. Okay, so these, the onions, the carrots, the celery, also known as the Holy Trinity or mirepoix in some types of cooking. It depends on what you're reading, what it's called. And then the garlic. Those layers of flavor are going to be complemented by some tomatoes. Now, I am not one, most of the canned items I use are canned tomatoes and canned beans. Those are for only in a rush. I prefer dried beans, but these, first of all, the label on this tomato is absolutely adorable. But these are whole peeled tomatoes. And once this, the onions get a little more translucent, that's all I'm looking for. I'm gonna add the tomatoes, and I'm also adding anchovy paste. Now, before you like are, ooh, anchovies, listen, you've had anchovies. You just don't know you've had anchovies. I don't really love working with whole anchovies. The kind of little furry stuff on their skin creeps me out a little bit. Totally fine. That's why I like anchovy paste. But we're gonna put a little anchovy paste in here. We're gonna take these tomatoes. Now these are whole tomatoes, and so I'm gonna gently squish them in my hands as I'm dropping them into the pot. And we're gonna cook it down until it gets kind of a rusty color. So we're gonna start with a squeeze of the anchovy toothpaste. And I would say we put about, I don't know, 2 teaspoons in there. We're gonna stir that around, make sure, so it kind of melts. Like you're not, oops, frying an onion. You're not even going to see it in here. And a lot of times anchovy paste is the item that's in addition, you're like, what's that flavor? The umami. So it's in Caesar dressing. So if you have Caesar, I don't like anchovies on my Caesar, love it in my dressing. So we're gonna take these tomatoes and very gently place them down, and while they're in there, very gently squeeze the tomato so it breaks up, because you don't want it squirting all over. I might have done that before, just saying. So we're gonna continue to add these tomatoes, and then we're gonna cook it down for about 10 to 15 minutes. Okay, so this mixture has been cooking for about 15 minutes. It's getting that rusty or red color, which is what we want. I've taken some fresh rosemary, which, oh, I love the smell of fresh herbs, especially rosemary, and some fresh thyme. And we're gonna tie this with a little string, a little bouquet garni. You could add sage in this if you want to. I just didn't happen to have any sage today. So we're gonna put this here. And then we're gonna add chicken stock and white wine. Now, I'm a firm believer that I cook with wine that I would drink. And boop, this is one of my favorite, very dry white wines. I don't like using sweet wine in my cooking because that taste then goes into the meat. And so I prefer a drier wine. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna place the pork shank back into, I'm gonna shut this off. I'm gonna place it back into the pot with any juices that might have accumulated. We're gonna nestle that right down in there, and then we're gonna pour in some chicken stock. And again, we do not want to cover the meat. We want it to be like in a pool, in a bath. So you want your shoulders out. And then we're gonna add some wine. Okay, and then we're gonna stir this around a little bit. I'm gonna place the lovely herbs in here, put the lid on it, and then I'm gonna stick it in the oven for 4 hours. We want that fork tender. So in about 4 hours, when I think it's gonna be done, I'm gonna start making risotto. So I'm gonna use the same wine and chicken stock in the risotto. And I just do, with this, I just do a simple plain risotto with just, onion, Parmesan. And then serve this on the bed of risotto with a little bit of that sauce, and I'm gonna chop up some fresh parsley, and it's gonna be a beautiful thing. So come back in 4 hours. Good night, say goodbye. Okay, so we're fast forwarding now. It's been about 3.5 hours since I put the pork in the oven. I did about halfway through, went in and I turned the piece of pork over so the top doesn't dry out and the bottom stays nice and moist. And so now what I have some chicken stock in a saucepan that I am bringing up to a boil, and then I'm gonna simmer that. And then I have equal parts of butter and olive oil in my pan. I've diced up some onion here. We're gonna saute that, and then we're gonna add the rice. So the basics for risotto are the same, no matter what you wanna do. You want to toast up your aromatics. Most of the time they're just onions. I usually put a little salt on the onions as they're cooking, and then once the onions are a little translucent, then we're gonna toast the risotto. And then the reason you want the stock warm is for the risotto to be able to absorb it. And you don't pour it all in there and boil and all of that, because it will make the risotto not creamy. You want that creamy risotto texture. There is Parmesan cheese in most risottos, but that is not all that makes it creamy. The arborio rice is designed to be creamy. I don't know how else to explain it. So I'm gonna start stirring this up here. I've been painting all afternoon. I don't know if you can see, like my drawers are open behind me. It's not my favorite task, but I really wanted it done, and so I'm doing it. So we're gonna season this with a little bit of salt, always kosher, diamond crystal salt. We just want these to get a little translucent. And then this is the arborio rice. It's a short grain rice. This is not a good way to show you. The light's reflecting off of that. But it's marked arborio. Sometimes it's called risotto rice. But for the most part, most of the time you will see it marked in on the box as arborio rice. And we have our onions are translucent now, so I'm gonna do 2 cups of this risotto, of the rice, excuse me. We just want to coat it with the fat, the butter and the olive oil combo here. And so you want to toss that around, mix those onions in there, and the rice is going to absorb all of that luscious fat in the butter and the olive oil. And I say that when you're cooking, you need to trust your nose. You can tell when something is done by the way it smells. So you should be able to smell the onions, and you'll start to smell a little toastiness, for lack of a better word. You don't want the arborio rice to brown. So as soon as you feel that it's toasty, we're gonna pour some wine in here. So we're gonna pour in about a cup of wine. And then we're gonna let this wine get soaked up by the rice. We'll just finish that off for good measure. I have never made a risotto without wine. If you don't want to cook with wine, you probably could just use extra chicken stock, but the alcohol does cook out if that is a concern for you. Then we're going to start ladling this chicken stock. So I usually have my stock right next door to my risotto, and with a soup ladle. So you can get, this one is 4 ounces, so that's about a half a cup every time. And then you're going to pour the stock in there, stir it. You do not have to continue to stir, but you do need to pay attention. I would not, go do a load of laundry or, file your nails or anything. But as this wine absorbs, once it's all absorbed, we're gonna add some of this chicken stock in there. And the thing I like about risotto is you can make it any flavor you want. So this one is just a very simple one. We're just doing Parmesan cheese and some butter at the end to really bring out that creaminess, because the pork has a ton of flavor. I did also put some of those fresh baby carrots. I'm not talking like the baby carrots in a bag. I'm talking about fresh, tiny little carrots from my farmer's market. I put those in there about the last half hour. So there'll be some different texture in there. So the wine is all absorbed. So I'm gonna take and ladle in a half a cup of stock. And then when this is absorbed, I'm gonna keep adding it. Now I probably have a little extra stock here than I need, but I always wanna make sure I have enough stock. And then I will taste it in about 20 minutes to see if it's al dente. And I will bring you back at that point. Okay, so my risotto is al dente. I'm gonna throw in about 2 tablespoons of butter, because even though we had butter in the beginning, we need some more butter, right? We're gonna get that butter to melt. I'm gonna put in about half a cup of some Parmesan cheese. And we're gonna let that melt. And then I'm gonna plate it, and I'm gonna use a pasta bowl. You can use a plate, but again, this is a braised pork shank. You can use veal. You can do this method with any type of meat. And again, we started off with sauteing, or browning, excuse me, the protein, and then sauteing onions, carrots, celery, garlic, and then putting in there some stock. If you did beef, you could do beef stock. Or with the pork, I like to use chicken stock, but you could use beef stock for that. And then you just cook it until it's falling apart. So here is the risotto. I'm gonna taste it and see if it needs any more salt. Making a mess. Nope, I think it's perfect. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a little bit of this in the center of the bowl here. And this is one big pork shank, okay? If I had individual ones, I would put this separately. But I took this big shank here and kind of broke off some pieces of it, and we're gonna put that right in the middle. And then we also have the sauce, and then we have the carrots that I added into it, like some of the baby carrots. And then we're gonna sprinkle it with some parsley. So here's your dish. I'm gonna go pour myself a glass of wine and have some dinner. Hope you enjoyed.